That was probably for the crowd a very awkward transition. But hello, and welcome everybody.
Hello.
Let's see. I joined the stream, but takes would be harsh and make people do things. You can come join anyway, Brooks. I don't mind. We can use some angry Brooks on here. It's cool.
You are most welcome to join.
Be harsh and make people do things.
That's pretty much it. That's pretty much what it's been. It's be harsh and make people do things. That is a hot take there.
We can't please everybody. I wish we could.
Okay. Let me turn you up a little bit because you're actually quiet for once. That's weird.
Well, that's a welcome surprise, probably for most people's ears.
Yeah. It's like everyone's used to very loud Brooks. Like, I gotta do grandma voice over here and do it really loud.
Let me put on push to talk too, so my dogs don't bark in the stream and give their input.
I mean, I don't mind doggy input. Doggy input is good. Okay. Anyway,
They might be screaming at me because they cannot go outside right now because I don't trust them outside. My Houdini cats have been escaping all day.
yes. You were saying something about earlier. Damn cats! I swear, they're as bad as kids.
Yeah.
Tricky.
They
That's why I
basically,
don't have them.
they basically are second kids. They are.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, hey, I'm gonna do the intro here and say, hey, everybody, welcome to the Gray Accords. I very rarely actually say the full name, so there we go. I said it for once. Today, we've got Teani and Nipsy hopped in randomly, and Rasani will be joining us here in just a little bit. They're just making some lunch right now because everyone apparently forgot to eat. It's a theme between all three of us. I don't know about you, Nipsy. Did you forget to eat?
Nope, I woke up at 6 o'clock this morning and made me food.
Oh, see, you were good. You were better than us. I had my protein coffee at like 11:30 ish or something, so or maybe closer to noon. I finally finished it right before I started to go live. Tiani's was making sandwiches right when we started talking, and yeah, Rasani's making lunch. So it's a day for everyone to forget about food.
It's been too hot. I had my breakfast this morning at 9 and something, I think.
Oh,
And now it's 7 in the evening and now
yeah.
I'm eating sandwiches because I can't, you know, no hot food right now. Brain does not work.
It's about the same here. I woke up this morning and it was already 76 outside.
Oh, yeah. That's my weather here. It's 87 right now. It's going to be 88 by the time it gets hot, which is not that bad. Honestly, we had hundreds several times the last 2 weeks, which is just ridiculous in June. It should be more of a July and August thing. So yeah, it's just been
Right.
hot.
And for those people who are actually using, normal kinds of temperature readings, 86 would be around 30 degrees Celsius for us normal
It's gonna
people.
be 108 here today, which is like 43 for you, Tiani.
Yeah.
Ugh. Ugh.
Right now at 7 in the evening, I have 30 degrees outside in my backyard.
That's just too
Um,
hot.
I think it's been up to around 45 today.
So I
But
do
it
live
was,
in the IRL Mojave Desert.
yeah. I have my little pool that I've basically been jumping into, but my cat's escaping every time I've turned my head, meant that I had to jump out of the pool more often than I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Now I it's like I think we've talked about food and about sandwiches and snacks and stuff pretty decently well. So we
Mhm.
can try to get into the topic of the day, which is probably going to go all over the place, and I don't care. This is not intended to be a strict format. It's free flowing. But the general concept is stagnancy of org concepts and what makes them kind of stop driving to do things in the outside world, what makes them kind of feel dead, even if the actual organization itself, like people being online, is not necessarily dead. And I know there's multiple layers to it, obviously. And hey, welcome, Rasani.
Hello.
You sound very enthused.
So enthusiastic right now.
My apologies. I just got really stoned.
Oh,
So
Nice.
it's a little. I'm here now. If it's helpful
Yeah.
at all to anybody.
that's still fine. Being stoned is a good thing, and I actually thought about grabbing alcohol before I got on, but then I was like, you know what? I might be driving afterwards, so I better not. Just better not
Yeah.
be bothering for right now. I'll do it later. Anywho, so as I was kind of teeing up, we're talking about the stagnant feeling in organizations. How does it happen? How do we fight it? How do we try to keep things lively without also bridging into that overbearing effect where it ends up, for the other organizations involved, kind of sucking for them, because that's a point. It's like, as much as you want it to be fun for everyone, not everyone's gonna have fun because not everyone likes the same things. That's life, unfortunately, or fortunately. I don't know. Don't know what I'm saying there.
I'd say that one of the things that I've noticed can make an organization falter and feel a bit more stagnant. It has to do with time zones,
Yes.
and that's something that we can't escape. It doesn't matter what we do, it will not be possible to have an organization that is essentially alive all
For
hours.
everyone.
Yeah.
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 No, it won't happen. But I'm thinking that it would probably be a good idea if those who are in charge of the guild try to have someone around at different time zones so that it's possible to communicate and make sure that everyone is, up to date on what is happening. Use messages more often. Use the news post system more often, just to make sure that everyone feels like, okay, at least I got informed.
Yeah. I think this is a good starting point. So starting with what you can't really help is a solid foundation of just kind of prefacing for everyone the types of things that you're going to have to deal with, even as an org that's fairly large. It's still going to be the same issue. So yeah, time zones and how to work around them is a key point. And I agree that you've got to be willing to use messages. I have this issue where, and this is something that drives me crazy because of the fact that there's so many people playing different time zones. I'm obviously mostly play European hours because of my sleep schedule. So I'm usually in here handling things during early morning my time to, pretty early evening, not too late. And then I'm gone. And I miss a lot of the what I call overnight, but the, 12 hours of actual live activity in the game where a lot of people are online. So I end up not hearing about some of the stuff that happens because people don't use messages enough. They don't post. They just are like, I don't need to do that. That's cool. It's like, no, the big thing that you need to make sure that you're doing if you're, when you're dealing with time zones and trying to keep people feeling like the org is still alive and still trying to keep things going is communicating. It doesn't matter if it's messages, doesn't matter if it's post, doesn't matter if it's a write log to the organization log or anything. There has to be communication. You have to be willing to communicate to other people. You cannot withhold anything. I don't care how small it feels like it is. Like, oh, there's an NPC and they talked to us and it wasn't really talking. They just kind of, had a casual conversation and then it was done. Like we had a NPC randomly tell us, hey, you guys are saying you won't talk to Varian, but you're saying you'll do everything that, any cost to fix Dendara. And if I hadn't been online, no one probably would have told me about it because it was so small of a thing, because it wasn't necessarily actively changing the mindset of the org or anything. But those types of things still need to be told to people. They still need to be relayed. If everyone misses even one little piece of the puzzle, it can ruin entire events going on and entire just, fun
This
times.
is something that I have been living basically since forever in the game because I'm European.
Yeah.
And missing out on, even if it's a weekend, I will not be able to log in and be in at 2 in the morning because I cannot. I'm too old.
Yeah.
Seriously, I'm ancient compared to some people playing this game, and but I'm too old to switch around my hours.
Yeah.
I can't do it. If I'm working every week, even the weekend, I have to keep my sleep schedule because otherwise I am a mess Monday morning and I need my energy.
Yeah.
Now, during the summer, sure, fine. I don't have a set schedule, but I don't want to mess with my sleep schedule too much anyway, meaning I prefer not to be up in the middle of the night unless I get caught up in something and stick around, but I don't, you know, hold out on an event that I know will start at 2 in the morning because
Right.
I know that it will end way, way later than that. But I'd love to hear about it. If even if it's a small thing, even if it's just, we talked about this thing. Even if it's between leadership having a discussion about this Dendara thing. If there's nothing in my organization, I'll basically think that, okay, so nothing's happening here. I
Yeah.
hear that something might be happening, but nothing's coming out of it.
Yep.
So
Yep.
then I feel like, okay, so my org is dead,
Yep.
at least when I'm around. And since no one else is talking about it, or I can't see anything on C-Tells because that's too short back, all I see is basically hi, goodbye. And then you have long, very long summaries, and those are awesome. I mean, Ink writes the most spectacular posts for the city with information. It's like a treasure trove for someone like me who hasn't been around to see what's going on. And that's what I want from everything.
Yeah.
I just, I've not seen many of the events. I stumble upon an area that I had no idea that existed, which was something like, okay, this
So,
is
funny
good.
story regarding that, Tiani, is I explore and say things, and as you know, I'm very long winded generally.
Mm-hmm.
And jokingly on web, I think this was a day and a half or 2 days ago, I stumbled upon Rhyme Watch, the new village.
Yes.
And I said, "Hey, I just got a new area thing. I got a milestone. There's a new area up by Spines Reach. Does anybody know about this?" And I, unironically, everybody in the web said, "Oh yeah, Spines Reach just doesn't communicate."
Well,
And
hey, hold up. There's a new area. I don't even know about this either. That's why
There's a new,
Explorer Rankings is screwed. Damn it.
see here. I live in Spines Reach, and I had no idea about Rhyme Watch,
How
right?
how do you spell
I
that?
had no idea about Rhyme Watch. So I was stumbling around and realized that I had less than 100% up in Southern Tundra, and I was like, this is new.
yeah,
So
it's
exploring, going through everything, and it ended up being just outside of Spines Reach. And I was like, okay, so why haven't I seen anything of this? Maybe it's in a news post, a small notation somewhere, but it's not like something you would expect. Basically, um, a huge post, a public post, or something.
You would think.
fortunately the trouble is that one person really takes the initiative to make this post. Ink, who I give a lot of respect to, is a good communicator, especially when it comes to stuff going on, and they're an amazing writer. So you do have that fortunate thing. The sad part is they're the only one doing it, and
Yeah.
so what needs to happen is a change in mindset. I think that city leadership in general should take a responsibility for that. I know we do it a lot in Bloodlock. Warren will write posts. I'll write
Inorian is
posts.
also we expect anybody, and we have the good fortune in Inorian that we have leaders that are online at most times. Like at one point or another, there'll be one herald on,
Yeah.
And it's always been sort of an unwritten rule that, like, if you're a herald and something happens, you write a news post. I can't imagine an area fully of Anorian being open and nobody telling anybody.
Right. In this case, there is actually a news post. I must have glossed over it or something because it was basically written oh, now I see why. It was posted the day before Midsummer's Eve, and Midsummer's Eve is like big national holiday thing.
Holiday.
So yeah, it's sort of like I probably glossed over it when I was, in reading news very quickly.
Teani just got 5 tells. There's a news post, Teani. No kidding.
Oh, I do want to say a counter thing on this, and this is something that we ended up in Duran. We ended up having a meeting yesterday. I've been trying to run meetings every so often as the org leader while we got this whole war thing going on to try to make sure people are up to speed and see if they have ideas, etc. And this last one ended up being essentially catching everyone else up that's not been able to read news posts. We want to know why? Because we have a shit ton. Because we are actually very proactive about posting about every little thing, which is good for us. I mean, I like that fact that we're getting and trying to make sure people are updated. It's not just the leadership; it's also people in some of the ministry roles and some just general purpose, active people in the org. They're still doing the posts, but there are a lot. Like in the last week, it's probably a solid 20 or more posts that have happened. It's got to be more than that, most likely. Maybe less. But that's a lot for someone who's been gone because of summer, been gone for a couple of weeks. They have a lot to catch up on, and you're gonna gloss over some things. So there were several people that had just missed out on a couple of minor details. Some you can tell the people that didn't read them at all, that didn't know anything. And you kind of just gotta deal with it. You gotta be like, okay, whatever.
Science Reach is not terrible with this. I mean, they actually do inform the citizens, but I think that they could, discuss a bit more. But it's, a city of secrets in a way. It's stuck in that mode sometimes, where if the citizen are discussing something, they will not always share it with the rest of the city. If the archivists are discussing this whole Dandara thing, it's not going to come out into the city. And the same thing with the Sciomancers. It's like two people.
You do have 3 organizations that are very secret oriented.
Yeah.
It's like 3 people being involved or 2 people discussing it within the guild, but they won't share what they are discussing or how they are discussing it until maybe later on when they have something substantial to talk about. And it's like, could you at least let us know that we're talking?
Yeah, that's been my thing. Like there ended up being, and this is just, being transparent as far as like what's going on in my org, is there ended up being a full-on leak. Like when Lenorial made a post that was talking about Dendara dying and all these other things. These are not things that have really been publicly made known beyond the org, but we've been posted about it in our org. So there had been a leak. So we at least, did a general post of, hey, we're not giving you a ton of details, but at least we're talking about X, Y, and Z, so you're aware. There's a way to still communicate it. Okay.
And now, just for my curiosity's sake, was this a role-played leak? Because that's kind of interesting.
I'm wondering. I don't know. I've been...
Well, the thing is, Teani knows in-game.
Yeah, Teani knows in-game, but that's... The way that it was worded, it seems like it was very much related, especially since they knew about us reaching out to the Helm. That's another thing that we hadn't been making publicly known because of the fact that we didn't want Bamathis kind of looking at our org too much.
Right.
Yeah,
but she went and posted it publicly, and we're like, well, shit. Okay, great. Someone leaked it because obviously it's the Dying and the Helm combined that were things we discussed on actual council posting. So it definitely was leaked. I don't.
I think this kind of points out to me one of the concerns that, like, when I've led orgs and we've had sort of secretive things happening that I would call, like, I would say kind of explains why there will sometimes be things that happen that aren't talked about openly.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately that's sort of the problem is, to me, it's already an issue that you can't tell if this was an in-character leak or not.
Yeah, that's
like that you can't tell if a newbie or somebody accidentally let something slip to somebody they considered a friend, or if somebody with an alt absolutely just went wild and decided to release information that they only had because they had an alt.
Yeah.
I think that's sort of an issue already.
Yeah.
If you look at the chat right now, there's a valid point. There used to be a CISN in every room you were having a private conversation in.
Yeah. I will.
And I mean, CISN are kind of the information gatherer, so it wouldn't be too far fetched. That's fine. It finds out.
Which is true. However, like it's one of those things where you should still be able to trace the role play.
Exactly.
You should still be able to feel that something is different from just a copy and paste of your news post.
Yes.
And that's it kind of concerns me that we can't tell whether or not that's what happened.
Yeah.
And I can understand
like,
that's as a leader, I have definitely in the past, there have been things that I'm like, we're not writing a news post about this yet.
Yeah.
We will talk individually and privately with every knight, but we're not having a news post about this yet because we can't have this information get out.
Precisely. Like,
which is totally cool RP.
Yeah.
But you should be able to tell if it's an in-character leak or not.
Yeah.
And it kind of worries me that you can't really tell.
At least not
even if
yet.
you are leaking, even if you
yeah, exactly.
information, like you should be actively trying to make it look like it isn't copied verbatim or fabricating parts of it, so that it is a little bit more dramatic. I mean, I think that blatant copy pasting is kind of tacky.
Well, I think in this case,
of course.
it's like, in this case, it wasn't a blatant like copy and paste. They added in the stuff about the whole, and I'm not going to get into this today because obviously this is a whole thing that I don't want to get into, but the whole child murdering and all this other stuff, that's not anything that we've obviously gone into too much, so it wasn't a straight copy and paste, but we did end up taking a lot of what Rasani is saying about, into mind, ended up instead going into like the speakers clan that we have, posting things there, discussing things there, keeping it kind of under the cuff, but still kind of giving a general idea to the council about what's going on, but trying to keep a lot of that to the cuff until I can figure out. I have plans, like my character has plans to try to see if we can weed it out and figure out if it was a role play thing, and there's ways to do that. I mean, it's common espionage 101 where you just give each of the different orgs a little snippet that's a little bit different. You're playing the what do you call it, the game where you tell someone something and the telephone game. Yeah, you play the telephone game where you give each of the orgs and see which one comes up. Just say, hey, post this, see if it comes up, and then we'll figure out at least which org it's coming from, and from there we can figure things out. So there's ways to get around it and figure it out in game. Just haven't had the opportunity to do it yet. But I do want to say about the citizen thing, I can tell you for a fact, at least at the conversation level, we were in a private room. We eyed constantly. We had it so that a key Sigel was down so that you can't necessarily come into the room without us being aware. There's, we were preventative in that sense that we know at least for a fact in character that is not going to be a leak.
Wasn't an assistant in the room.
Exactly. There wasn't an assistant in the room. It had to be someone.
It had to be either a traitor to Durin, or, unfortunately, somebody with an alt just deciding to stir shit.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's either it's a role play thing or it's someone.
Which, if you do that, like whatever, but it is tacky.
It
like
is,
clearly it doesn't matter, but like it is super tacky.
Yeah, it's like it just makes my life a little bit more difficult. But frankly, if that's your prerogative, I don't care. You do you. Whatever. I will find ways to make it so you can't do it.
You figure that out.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Teani.
About showing activity and things. I was trying to have a discussion about these Dandara things on separate occasions. And sometimes I've managed to get responses and everything, but in the Sciomancers, just because that's where I am, there is one news post about this whole thing. One. The previous one from before that was in March. So we haven't had any news posts since March. and then we had one news post about the war in Styrian. And of course, Teani is trying to discuss whatever is possible to do, what they are discussing, and it felt sort of like, no, we don't want to involve people. We have two people talking about this right now, so we'll let you know.
Yeah.
Like, okay. So in the meantime, I'm supposed to sit and wait
Yeah.
and not engage in my guild's discussions about this thing that involves shadow. That is our thing.
If the guild itself is not taking the initiative, in my mind, that's my trigger to be like make a post, basically blasting them, saying this is your responsibility. This is what have it written down.
So I can't blast them because they are doing something, but they are not discussing it in the open, and they would not let my character in on it. And I mean, I think it's kind of fair to say that Teani is not the first person you would think to be a Duran spy. Who would go and take whatever is spoken in the Sciomancer's top level guild channel, not general guild tells, and go tell Duran that Sciomancers are doing this and this right now, so if you want to counter them, do this. Right now, Teani is basically saying that Duran are stupid because they're basically ruining everything and might, ruin prime material plane. But I mean, not involving the rest of the guild makes it feel like the guild is dead. At least to
Somebody
me.
who was in the Sciomancers, it kind of is. I mean,
it feels like it's dead to me because I'm not being involved in it, even if I'm trying to draw out information and trying to be involved.
yeah, it's sad.
Not something I can do. Well, tell me, there's nothing. Okay, can we try to get something going? Or if you are talking, let me be involved.
Teani's a lot more polite than the way I play my characters.
Yeah,
I mean, I would probably just start blowing up people's spot and making wild accusations. But I also play very differently than you do.
Yeah, and I think
it's
right now is more like she does not want to step up into a leadership position. She just wants to be involved. And I think that there are many people out there who are in the same position as I am. I do not want to go up and be a leader again. I don't want to be the Sciomancer Shadow Warden. I don't want to be the guild master again. I don't want to run for Senate. I just want to be involved in a little bit.
Yeah.
When on time, because the weather is nice outside and I might sit in the sun the entire day if I feel like it, skipping out on Aetolia. And then I come in and then I want to do something. But right now it feels like I can't, at least not in my guild. And that's an issue because it should be to be involved in some way.
I think
I've been having discussions with Rihrin at least, so I've had some cross together about it, which is nice.
Yeah. Go ahead, Rasani.
But yeah.
I think one of the issues, and it's funny because it's something that Nipsy sort of said earlier, is that to make an org work, you do kind of have to be harsh and make people do things.
Yeah.
You can't make people fight, of course. Like, I mean, I guess if you're Aberash, you can, but, like, I'm not Aberash, so I can't make people fight. But you have to make people, like, the guild, any guild that you're in is not going to be a place for everybody. Inevitably, and you cannot expect a guild RP to make room for you if your RP is wildly out of the way.
Yeah.
Like, for example, I'm not going to name anybody because that's mean, but we had a guild member leave recently because we tried to rein in their kind of silly conduct. And they were really pissed off about it. And for whatever reason, people seem to have this mentality that if I join a guild, they should make room for me. And that's just not the case.
Yeah.
You have to find a way to make your... If you really want to stay in that guild, you have to roleplay making your character fit into that guild.
Yeah.
And I think that when you do that kind of stuff, the kind of that personal responsibility to keep people up to date, to keep everybody involved, kind of follows. Like, I don't know what's going on with the Sciomancers, but I do know that guild leadership should keep guild... I mean, I get it. I would get it if Teani were, like, the equivalent of a page, but I'm willing to bet that she's not.
No.
I'm willing to bet that Teani is pretty high up there in guild rank. So the idea that she's being kept out of these things is very strange.
Warden. She's the former guild master, so
so we have in the Templar a council of former leaders. So if a guild is making a decision, they'll usually come to you for insight, and you're in part of that conversation.
Yeah.
So to me, they kind of go hand in hand. The idea that I do think stagnant guilds come from trying to make sure that there's a place for everybody. Some people are just not going to fit in with what you're doing, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, it is totally okay for a guild to not be the place for them. And that's what being a page and a novice is all about, is finding a place where you fit in.
Is this your place?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that when you try to make sure that anybody can fit in, it's one thing if it's a city, because if you're not breaking the laws of a city, whatever.
Yeah.
You could stay in whatever, as long as you're not throwing a fit when we do what we're supposed to do. But a guild is another matter entirely, and I think when people say that they want orgs with direction, what is really the easiest thing to give you direction is the guild, because a city has so many people in it that not everybody is going to agree on the way forward, unless you're dealing with something really cut and dry.
But even then, like, I can disagree with that at one point, Rasani, because I think that your thought regarding guilds also applies to cities and orders in some regard, because if somebody is just existing for the sake of existing as part of an organization, but they're not contributing to it in any manner, whatsoever. I mean, you have in the Templar a council of former leaders. We also had that in the Terradrim, but it didn't work because they felt like they were on a pedestal because they had been there forever. But they didn't really contribute, and these were people that I had to remove from the guild. So while I get that it works for some orgs, it won't always work for all of them.
Oh no, of course not.
Yeah. But even cities will have people that just exist in them because they want to be part of a city. But what have they actually done to be part of the community is where my brain goes.
Yeah.
And
yes.
Not everybody plays the same. Some people just want to be crafters or want to be gatherers, and that's fine. But they should still want to chime in and provide some kind of input, even if it's completely wrong and everybody disagrees with it.
Yeah.
Still providing the input puts you as part of that community.
Yeah.
And I wish that people would understand that, because there's people that just linger somewhere because it's all that they know, not because they necessarily belong there.
Yeah, and I will chime in here. We actually, with everything that's going on in Iran, we had someone leave recently. I respect them. They're a great player, and they just, didn't necessarily agree with what our organization was doing. Now, did they think about some of the context of what was going on? No, don't think they did, but that's their players' view on it. So respectfully, they gave their feedback, they made a post, and they left, and there's no hard feelings. Like, if that's the org's not fitting your character's role play, there's no harm in leaving, but there's also no harm in just giving that feedback either. There's plenty of people that have tried, especially with everything going on, to give that feedback. They are constantly, just talking about what's going on, trying to make sure their opinion is heard, and there's nothing wrong with that. Just because someone might say, hey, that's kind of not how this works, but I appreciate you talking to me, doesn't mean that you're just...
That's sort of the thing, though, is realistically speaking, like, think back to the last time you had somebody really disagree with something that was happening in City Channel. And it was something that was, like, fundamental. Like, we're all saying, oh, well, even if their idea is stupid or whatever, at least they said something. But, like, realistically speaking, let's think back until the last time somebody said something that you disagreed with, or that they disagreed with you. How well did that go over for you? Like, when we're talking new players, for example, or even older players that get anxious about things, we're talking about, you know, we're talking about people who may not say something because the pushback is too much for them to handle.
That is true.
And it's one thing to say, like, oh, well, if you're in a leadership position, you have to be able to accept pushback, because you do.
Yeah.
You have to be able to accept that.
Yeah.
But if you're just some rando who joined a city because you thought the Essential sounded cool, and you put forward an idea, and then everybody shits on you for it, you're probably not going to do it again.
That is true.
And this is to say that shitting on people is not the correct thing.
Yeah.
But we've all also done it.
Yeah.
So, like, it's you know, we can't sit here and go, well, even if you're wrong, just say something, because historically, it hasn't turned out super well for people. So that's why I say, like, guilds and cities are different in that way. In that, like, if you're in a city, you can just sit there.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not a great look, but you can just sit there and be very active in your guild.
Yeah.
But when you're in a guild, the guild can and should force you to be active. Because why the fuck would I keep you in a company of knights if you don't want to do anything but fish?
Well,
What use are you to me and the guild if all you want to do is have your guild channel off and do nothing with you're just by yourself? You're
like,
locked in a fishing hole somewhere, and it's like, why are you part of the guild then? Because you want the class, presumably, but, like, then learn the class faster and then leave. Like, let us focus our attention on guild members who want to be active.
Well, that's my thing. Here's going to be my hot take on this, is that everyone gets to play the game how they want to within reason. If they join orgs and they don't want to be involved, I actually don't give a shit. I care more about the people that do want to be involved and will actively be involved more than I do about the ones that are not involved. If they don't want to be involved, let them go do their thing. They don't have to take part in the story. That's not a requirement of them being in a guild or being in a city. Them being a part of them is so they can get the benefits of being able to buy cheap credits or being able to get the city perks and be able to, like you said, to keep their class without necessarily having to master it, all of those different options. There's really no reason for them to drop organizations just because they don't want to be involved. And it does help you with having numbers. Let's say envoys, for example, is a big one that I haven't had anyone that needs to join lately, but I have, the need. It'd be great if I had more active members, even if they're not doing shit, because then I would have more envoys available. So if I did have other people that want to join from the other, organization on our tether, I potentially could, because I have a bunch of just miscellaneously active people that are basically filling a seat, so I could be able to have other active members. So I don't mind it that much. I really don't. I want people to be able to enjoy the game and do their own thing. It's just, there's no point in forcing them to try to do something guild or city wise. It's making them.
Can I ask though?
Yeah.
Can I ask though? Let's say that's the case. Let's say you get an envoy, and there's 5 inactive people who don't participate, 2 that do, and that's including yourself. Do you think that envoy is going to stay for a long time?
No, and that's okay.
That's what I mean. Is like. That's what I mean is like for that even if it's like, I'm not saying kick out everybody who doesn't do anything in your guild. I'm sure that's what it sounds like I'm saying. But what I am saying is, when we're talking about the health of guilds, as in the drive to do things, the stagnancy, that is part of it. Because if you have, and the Templar have gone through these, where we'll have a lot of people online, but they are all disinterested, unactive, like they just do not want to be involved. They're there because they want the class and they want to buy cheap credits from us. Yeah. That's what it boils down to.
Yeah.
And that to me is a guild killer, because you're sitting there, you're buying credits, but you're not engaging with the role play of the guild. And in some cases, you're wanting permission to act distinctly outside of it just so that you can keep the class that you like.
Well, that's
So,
a different thing. Like, if you're not following
well,
the
yes.
guild lore and you're following the guild RP and everything, that's a whole other issue. But I'm still fine with them saying, and this mostly is also because of what someone just said in chat, is they still get votes to change the direction of the org if they linger. So as long as they're, you know, their current state is still aligning to the guild, like they're not fighting the role play, they're just, you know, even keeping the status quo if it needs to be, if there's no reason for things to change up, I'm still okay with them. If they are still doing some small things of being active and participating in votes and mild conversations, or they're just doing their own thing. It doesn't bother me as much, but I'm also in a dead guild. I've tried as a guild leader to revive this guild, and
I think it depends on the guild you're in, because like, for example, let's say you've got it. I mean, I'm just gonna call a spade. We witnessed it with the Dominion thing. Like, I apologize to anybody who's gonna get pissy about this, but let's call a spade. A bunch of people who aren't active logged on, got their vote strength up, and voted to keep somebody in.
That is true.
That is the danger of people who are not involved with the guild but are sticking around for voting power. So, like, while it doesn't matter if you have a guild that's like, I've tried everything and I'm getting frustrated and, like, there's nothing I can do, but it's another thing if you have a guild that needs new leadership desperately, but because you have all these randos who don't mind that they're just being left there to sit and buy credits and do nothing for the guild, and they don't have to engage with guild RP, really, they just get to sit there, they're going to want to maintain the status quo, as we've seen. There is a real danger to that kind of stuff when it comes to the health of the guild. And like, this again is not to say kick out anybody who doesn't engage with the guild all the time. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is, for the health of the guild, a guild is healthier the more people that are in it are heavily involved. Even if you have fewer players in the guild, as long as they're all involved, that guild is going to feel 10 times more alive than a guild that has 20 people where only 3 interact.
No, that is a valid point. I'm just saying in general, I'm still the person that's not necessarily me as an org leader. I'm not gonna go poke at them more than I have to. I'm gonna check on them. I'm gonna try to interact with them.
Poke at them plenty.
Yeah, and poke at them plenty. But if they're really not engaging, I'm not gonna go kicking them out. That would, frankly, unless it's a really specific case where they are, you know, doing that, they're possibly trying to deliberately keep certain things going that shouldn't be, or they're not matching the role play of the organization. There's literally not really a good reason to be kicking them out. And you would get an admin for it.
Well, again, that's why I keep saying I'm not advocating to kick people out. I am just saying that, like, the more people who are actively engaged with a guild, the healthier that guild is going to be. So it's really more of a call for, hey, if you're in a guild and you're not really super involved with it, maybe it's time to consider going to a different guild.
Yeah.
Honestly, what you have to do is that you have to be aggressive. And I get that, you know, if they're sticking with the guild RP, but the guild RP is malleable. It's not some set in stone thing.
And yes, you can change things.
100%. And what happened when I kicked everybody out of the Terragrim who was just sitting on their ass telling me how to do my job when I'm Imperator? They all went to the Dominion and supported the person who would let them sit on their ass.
That's true.
So it's 100% an issue with the mentality of the player, not the RP of the guild. You need to be able to adjust and willing to adjust. And if the leadership all is supporting a certain idealism and you are refusing to conform to that, then bye. You're out. Guild house.
You know what?
I'm not dealing with it.
I do want to chime in on this right here, because this is actually something where, and I'm being transparent. I'm just going to be transparent because it's all Durrani stuff, and I have to keep using that because obviously that's currently where most of my focus is. My guild is really just dead. The one other person that was heavily active, I mean, quit. There's one other person that plays occasionally, but that's pretty much it. That's my guild. So focus on Duran. I actually had a conversation with Actinus on this because there have been several really extreme ideas on where we could take the role play for Duran. Really cool ones, like talking nihilism and just, you know, really some wild things that would make it a very hardcore organization versus being kind of like all the organizations kind of are right now. Well, that was part of this conversation. Why we're going to bring up stagnancy is what causes it is your org lore kind of feeling and needing some tweaking. But we were talking about that, and Ikti was like, hey, if you do this, you're probably going to lose players. Are you okay with that? Are your other people in your org behind that? And I'm like, yeah. That's kind of the expectation, is if we change the org in a way that's going to make the lore be better and be, more malleable and have a lot more options, flexibility, and just drive the story for the player base in a better direction, you have to be prepared for people to leave, and you're going to have to be prepared to, and just be honest, like Nipsy said, kick people out who aren't going to fall in line with it. And that's going to be one of those things that I know we've kind of gone from topic to topic. We've been, going all over the place. But I think that is something that people have to understand, is that if your role play is not matching up and you don't agree with it, you can try to change it. But if it's not changing and there's more people that want it a certain way than you do, there is no harm or shame in leaving that organization and finding something else to do with yourself.
It's stressful. It's
stressful to stay if you're not fitting in.
I've been where you are now, Rihrin. Maybe not quite as bad. I mean, I had 2 other people speaking in a guild, I think, when I joined the Sciomancers. And then Elenia, who was the guild master of the time, just went poof. So I was the only one there, and she'd been talking about handing it over to me. So I had to, challenge for guild leader, and I got it. And then I had to start rebuilding the guild. It takes a lot of effort. First of all, you have to have a great idea on where to go, and you need to have good communication with pools, because administration will want to have, you want to have a specific path to walk on, or you might
make sure it fits with the stuff admin has for you moving forward and all that.
And in my case, there was, a gap when it came to information, because I didn't get any handover, and I was like, okay, so I just joined this guild and now I'm going to lead it. I have no idea what we're doing. It's just, what can I do? What is a Sciomancer? Can you please tell me? And right now I think it's lucky, because now you have a lot more information coming down from above than I had at the time, because I didn't get a lot of help when it came to lore. I was basically just told to read news posts, and that's yeah, I can do that to an extent, but at some point I just want to sit down with someone and brainstorm, and can I go this way? What can I do with this? Can I just have some ideas? What kind of lore can I base this on? And then see if I can run with it. A lot of the things, I know Mariana was in at the time, and a lot of things I just, figured out on my own and threw together, and then I was hoping that it would be fun for people. So the branding ceremonies that we had in the Sciomancers, that was something that I just, let's see if this might be fun. And it turned out it was fun for people, so I kept going with it. But at the same time, it was, when you manage to get a few people going, you have to make sure that you can keep to that path for a while until you are at least somewhat established as a guild that does a specific thing.
Kurak and I had to do that in the Terragym. When Kurak joined the Terragym, he came from the Carnifex. It was me that took over as Imperator from Rihrin. Rihrin was dealing with some out-of-character stuff and is dealing with some personal things. And it was me against basically a bunch of people who did not like me. And Nipsy's easy to not like. Now 100%, this aggressive little shit stain just came into your guild and took the reins and said, it's mine now. Like, you're gonna have some issues.
Yeah.
But it's a cult of personality. Your personality has to be more powerful, and when you have a bunch of apathetic people and you are a strong-willed, confident person who's just going to push, they aren't going to be able to fight you back on that because you are making posts and you're out there doing stuff and you're overpowering them by sheer force of personality.
Yeah.
Siren and I are currently
to go forward, right?
Sorry, Rasani was trying to talk and you were saying something, Teani. What was that?
Go, Rasani.
Siren and I are currently doing this in Damariel's order. Proof that it can happen in any organization. So don't think that your orders are safe either.
Orders are
this can happen
100%
anywhere.
in that. Orders. Daryl needed
And I'm certain that we may have people that will log on after being away for a long time, see what we've done to Damariel's order, and leave immediately.
Yeah.
Because we're it's stepping away from the fantasy Jesus thing. It's we're pushing really hard into liberation at any cost.
Yeah.
Which is really fun and cool. But there's gonna be people who don't like it because they're like, this isn't Damariel. And it's like, yeah, it is. Damariel asked us to do this. Yeah. Damariel literally asked us to do it. Like, it's I think part of an issue that people can have is they when orgs change, there are difficulties with, like, sometimes people come back and are like, well, this isn't, you can Siren left the Carnifex because it wasn't the Infernal. Totally acceptable. That's what you should do. Yeah. But sometimes people just sit there and go, well, when I led this, and it's like, that's cute, but you don't anymore. You left, things changed. You have to be used to the fact that they have changed because they have to. Yes. Nobody's going to stay with the same shit forever, I say, having only been in Templar and the Centauri for like a little bit. But the Templar have changed and evolved in the years that I've been in it.
Yeah.
So, it's every organization has to constantly look at ways that they could make their RP more exciting.
Yes, I completely agree. And I'm just, this is such a good point here. It's like, I hate when people come back after being gone for a while and are like, well, this is not how I did things. I'm like, well, fuck you. This is not what the org is anymore. I'm sorry. You're going to have to get in line. It's not in that. And I think we're going to have that happen in Duran right now, especially because, like you're saying with the Damariel thing, is that, you guys are saying freedom or whatever at all costs. We're now saying, okay, saving Dendara at all costs. Literally, like, there's no price too high to pay to get this fixed. We have to do it. There's going to be some extremes. There's no morality in it. There just isn't. Yeah. And there's a lot of people that look at that and say, there should be some morality. It's like, no, we're not moral. We're not the black and the white. We are the gray.
It's interesting because with Damariel, it's liberation at any cost, but there are some costs we won't pay. Like, we won't kill children. We won't kill slaves. That kind of thing. Like, we're pushing really heavily right now on the liberation of slaves.
Yeah, you guys are doing really good.
It's tangible that we can do, and it's something that Damariel's order, frankly, should have been doing from the start.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that they haven't been running around for, like, freeing slaves this whole time is mind-boggling to me because it's the simplest way to get people engaged in the order. When I say, hey, make sure you go free slaves, I have people in the congregation who are like, oh, I already did it this week, but thank you.
Yeah.
It's like people are excited about that turn. And yeah, you may lose some people. Like, you may, in fact, lose some people.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there are people who were in Damariel before or in Damariel now that are like, man, I remember when this was about self-improvement. Well, giddy up, bitch. It's time to take that self-improvement and go improve the world with it.
Yes.
Like, at a certain point, if your guild or your org or whatever is all inward, then it's not going to do anything. Like, that's what I think is going to be interesting about Duran, because it's not about Duran specifically, but such an inward-facing goal that it'll be this right now, and then it'll continue to evolve into something that allows you to engage with the world, but also focus on your goal, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
So it'll be really cool. It'll also create some avenues. Like, I don't think you're gonna find that Enorian and Durin don't, because the tethers are just too ingrained in everybody. I think you're gonna find that we continue to work together. But I do absolutely see an instance where we could have a battlefield with each other.
Yeah.
Over something that you guys are doing that we find morally unjust.
Yeah.
And that's interesting. I think that allies need to be more willing to have skirmishes.
Yeah.
To have these little bouts of, like, we don't agree with you.
Yes.
And then maybe you have, like okay, I'm sorry to bring up the killing kids
No,
thing
you
again,
can.
but we're gonna
have to. We're gonna have to.
So only a couple people, to my knowledge, said this, openly admitted that they said it. And to my knowledge, it has not happened.
No.
But people have said that they do it. In the defense of Dendara.
Yeah.
So, for example, let's say that they did do it. And let's say that Durin was like, no, we're protecting them, Enorian, and you can't put them on trial or whatever it is we want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that being an instance where we fight each other.
Yeah.
Not with a, we're always at war, but at a, okay, we're going to have a battlefield. If we win, they have to go on trial. If we lose, then fine. You keep your little child murderers and we begrudgingly work with you. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes.
Yeah.
I do think, like, knowing that what's been talked about and where you guys are heading, I am curious to see how many people stay in Durin.
Yeah.
Because there are some people I can think of off the top of my head that will leave. I also think you'll come across a situation where you may have guilds in Enorian who say, we aren't accepting envoys. You have to make a choice.
Yeah.
So it'll be really interesting to see what happens. I'm very excited for you guys.
I'm excited. And I see this chat that I feel like the Killing Kids is an incredibly cliche test for, is your org amoral? And I completely agree. It's I just hate to say it, and this is the reason why I didn't want to bring it up. It's completely annoying as all get out that this has been the focal point, that we said it once casually in a threat, just like saying, hey, you guys need to stop what you're doing, or we're going to go find your family and kill everyone. We're going to go kill your kids, whatever. And then people have just run with it and made it such a focal point of this being the reason why we're, the
I hate to point out the obvious, but, like, what did you expect?
I know, it's like, what did we expect?
I'm sorry, what did you expect? You throw it out once, and then that's all anybody's ever going to call you.
Exactly. And
you shouldn't have said it if you didn't want it brought up.
And that's fine. I didn't say it. I actually did not say this shit.
Like, keep this off me.
Yes, it's like, please take this off of me. Illidan said this the one time, and then it just became a thing. And I've been rolling with them. Like, you know what? Fuck it. Technically, the organization, if it went between killing a kid and saving 1,000 people or 10,000 people or whatever, we'd kill the kid. Whatever. But it shouldn't be such a focal point. It should not be as much. I see
Eosid over here saying there are better ways creatively to convey lack of morality. Then you guys should have done it.
Yeah.
Then you guys should have said those instead of, we'll kill your children.
Well,
I don't know what you want me to say.
As somebody who has made posts about killing children, let me tell you that it has put perspective into my mind, the imagery in how that is used, in how it can affect people negatively. And I think that there are more tasteful ways to portray villainous or by any means necessary behavior. Nipsy's awful, but I definitely shouldn't have made posts saying how I drag kids behind horses and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
there's a bit
it's a learning experience. There's ways that I could be a better role player and we can better portray our sense of by any means necessary or lack of morality in my case.
Yeah.
I think that, however, those terminologies and those ways that we portray things are very striking, and they do hit people harshly. This is what I'm willing to do, and this is the most awful thing I could think of.
Yeah.
Certainly.
So, I mean, it has a place. Yes, it's cliche, but it's also a way to make everybody. It's like in a teen
it gets
movie.
People on edge.
It's like in a teen movie where the record skips.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's in theory, It gets us, but primally and instinctively, it gets to people.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I do want to comment on it, though. And this is something that, Sid and I have been talking about. And honestly, Sid is a lot of the backing of really pushing some of this. I know there was the forum post, and I was like, dude, talk to me. Let's figure out what we want to do. Let's make changes. I don't give a shit. I'd rather us be proactive, whatever. I will say that what he's saying right now is a good point, because we have been trying other ways to show that we are amoral. We have been making points about other ways that we would do things, why we are gray. We've been trying our hardest to put it out there. Hey, these are other things that make us, be considered that we're amoral. But then everyone just keeps circling back to the one statement. Well, and I get why, but it's like, guys, please let us show the other reasons.
There's a reason we don't hear about the hundreds of adults that die every day from gun violence, but we hear about every kid that dies.
Yep, and that's because it's such a harsh point.
It's primal.
Yeah.
Like this, and I don't even want kids, but you have that instinctive animal brain thing.
Yeah.
That
innocence of a child.
Children.
Yeah. And I get that. It's just like I've been trying to downplay it.
Sucks that you can't, you know what I mean? It totally gets that that's now like the key point of you guys having your amorality thing. But it is also like, it's one of those things where it's like it's like you could have seen it coming a mile away.
Yeah.
Especially right now.
Well,
like right now, today, in the climate we're in, was not the time to do that.
Well,
if
honestly,
you didn't want it to be remembered for.
Yeah, it's like
know?
one person said it, the one person that's going to go completely balls wild with what he's going to say, and we had to roll with it, and from there, now we cannot get out of it. We cannot
forever
dig
to stamp
ourselves.
on your passport.
So one dude runs his mouth, and now you guys are like, all right, fine.
I know, and
Bloodlock
it's like,
deals with me every day, so you guys
exactly.
you have one.
Illidan is our Nipsey. Illidan is our Nipsey. That's what it is. And then we're stuck with his consequences. And I adore him. He's fantastic. I got what it was in the moment, and I'm still behind it. But it's frustrating, and I get what Sid's trying to say there, and I wanted to just convey the fact that we have been trying, and it is. There are better ways. There are creative ways.
It's hard
we
to
are
come
trying
back from
to,
that.
but it's hard to come back from whenever you get to that extreme. People would focus on that extreme, and that's their thing.
You know what's fun though is that when you're talking in terms of like enemies, Spines Reach has killed children. They've killed children to start race riots. So, like, they can't say shit to you.
Oh, they will, though. That is the thing that, like, in my character's defense, I mean, she's not going to say anything in game, but me out of character, I see these postings about, you guys are doing all this, and this, and it's like, guys, do you
never
really
kill
know
a child? Enorian would beg to differ, girl.
Yeah, it's like you guys don't know your
would
history.
Like a word.
You don't know your history at all. You guys have done
forgotten Jared Groen-Bierman. They already did kill a child.
Yeah, they killed a child. Exactly. Yeah. Like they've done such terrible.
They already
things.
did it.
Yeah, they did
it. They tried to kill Copperhead. Most inexcusable.
Copperhead.
Well, yeah, they tried to kill Copperhead.
No.
They tried to kill Copperhead.
Yeah, it's like they don't remember it.
Spines Reach. No.
Yeah, it's classic Spines Reach. It's like we're gonna yell at you for doing the things that you shouldn't be doing, but realistically, we've already done those things. It's like Duran hasn't yet. We've literally not done it. We're getting yelled at for saying we might have to.
You're just saying it to be scary.
Yeah, we're just
like you're trying to scare people.
Yeah.
Which,
it's a whole thing.
It worked, but now everybody thinks you're fucking Freddy Krueger.
Exactly. But Spines Reach is the actual, and Bloodlock are the ones that have actually done this stuff. Like, Bloodlock has eaten babies. There's been roleplay for
it's
that.
It's like Jason killing a whole camp of kids and then pointing to Freddy Krueger as the one who did it. Like, that's what you're dealing with.
It really is. It's like,
guys, you shouldn't have slept.
You shouldn't have slept. Exactly.
Well, the council's in an interesting place because you do have people. I say the council has some of the game's strongest personalities.
Yes.
Outwardly, and you also have.
That's a nice way of saying they're loud.
Well, I mean, not to name any names, Ison, but
he's so much louder than me, and I'm the city leader, so I'm having to up my ante and be louder than him.
It's easier to be loud when you're not a city leader.
Exactly.
I think he's grateful that he's not, right? I think he's probably grateful that he's not speaker anymore.
Apparently, well, no, he's speaker. He's just not voice. He's not voice.
That voice, whatever.
Yeah.
our Rasani senator, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm old. Ethan also is a person who, you kind of touched on his post on the forums, but he's very passionate and cares a lot about his work.
He
I
does. He
think
really does.
to a flaw sometimes because he will just say what is on his mind. And he wants feedback, and I appreciate that about him. And I think that's something that more orgs should have, as somebody who genuinely has a vested love for or they don't want to see their org squandered, or they don't want to see the potentials left out. And I think that's
Yes.
something that he does very well, and I think it's something that I've heard you discuss, and I've heard people like Illidan discuss, and other people in the council that all genuinely care about their organization, but all have a different path they want to take to get there.
Yeah.
I think we're pretty unified at this point, besides maybe a couple of things. We're finally in a good spot. We're like, okay, we're just going to go fuck people up, and it's going to be fun. But I will say, let's kind of circle back to just general, when we're talking about stagnant organizations, that is a key thing, is if you have, if you're part of the organization and your leadership doesn't seem to really be doing anything, they're not really wanting to go push that organization out there, and you're trying your best as a lower position player, you're trying to get into the leadership, or you're trying to push them to do stuff. Sometimes if things just aren't happening, I don't think there's any harm with calling attention to it like Sid did. And that Sid, I love you. I know you're listening. I adore you. We're in a good spot now, but the post frustrated me just because of the fact that I want people to come talk to me if shit's hitting the fan and you want things to go in a different direction, rather than go make it public, just so that we can figure it out and we can make it happen. But there was nothing wrong with the post. It called attention to a really bad problem in our game, where a lot of our role play in our organizations is stagnant, and it needs an evolution. Like, we need, as organization leaders, to evolve them, and it needed that attention. So if there are other players, just people listening, that feel that way about their different organizations, don't ever feel like it's a bad thing to call it out publicly. Like Nipsy was saying too about public posts and all that. You could even just do it on the forums. You could go email the admin if you feel like, but feel free to do some more pushing if what you're doing doesn't seem like it's enough and you think it's a good idea for your organization. Now, does that mean you might kind of get some, like, we were saying earlier, some, feedback that you're kind of crazy. Yeah, some slack, some feedback there. You might get negative, but you have to be prepared for that if you really feel like this needs to be happening.
I will also say, like, unfortunately, we have to remember that part of this stagnation issue that we're seeing was game-wide, in that we had an inactive producer. So, unfortunately, a lot of these guilds that are in these really precarious positions might not have been there had we had active leadership, company-wise, to help us, grow in those years that we were with Tior. So,
that's
unfortunately, that's part of the issue. The other part of the issue, that I think the Dominion summed up perfectly, is that sometimes when people contest for guilds, they don't really have the best guild's interest at heart.
That is true.
They have at heart the interest of being able to continue to not be expected to do anything. So no matter how, well, I won't say no matter how young you are, if you're a page or whatever the equivalent is in other guilds, maybe don't just join and then contest for leadership, because nobody will take you seriously.
Yeah,
No.
but that's a different thing.
If you've been in the guild and you're seeing this, I understand that not everybody wants to lead a guild.
Mm-mm.
Unfortunately, sometimes you either have to do it or you have to be okay with the fact that the guild's gonna rot.
Yeah.
Like, if you want things to change, you have to be proactive. And sometimes being proactive means contesting. Even if you don't win, it will stir up the guild. The fact that somebody will contest is important and good.
Yeah.
So, like, you want that. You want people to, and I'm going to say it, as somebody who had a good long run as a guild master, I think the guild masters should trade hands more often.
I agree.
small thing to add there, though.
Yeah.
If you're a paid, or, if you're a low rank person in the guild, I would not, I would not give the advice to contest until you have actually explored everything of the guild.
Yeah.
So you know.
Yeah, no, I literally was like, don't contest if you're brand new, but like,
Yeah.
Not, even if you're not just brand new. I mean, you could have been in the guild for a while, but you haven't really pushed yourselves beyond, getting guild rank 2 and getting class mastery. Because, yeah, that's good. You got class mastery, meaning you know the skills and you can leave if you want to. But all guilds, I am guessing, I'm hoping, have some kind of system to keep pushing for levels further on than just, getting. So guild rank 2 is when you get class, right? And that step, getting there, should be an easy thing because that's something that game administration have set up. Everyone should be able to reach that fairly easily by learning about the guild, learning about the skills, showing that you've done that, and then it's fine.
Yeah.
After that, you step up and you try to engage in the guild and do whatever is beyond. If you haven't done that, if you haven't taken the steps for that to try and do what the guild has set up, I don't think that it's a good idea for you to say, this is stupid. I'm going to contest because this seems, or people are not doing anything, or it's, because you haven't really engaged. I had one person in the guild who did that, contested, and hadn't even gone through, the steps afterwards, had no idea what they were. So when they won because of different reasons, they didn't really know what the guild was about and started pushing ideas that were so outside the box that it was ridiculous. And that's when people realized that, this person should probably not be leading the guild. And that's when things turned around and someone else contested as soon as it was possible.
I
Well,
have a little bit of disagreeing thoughts on this, and that I know that was a very unique case, and that's one thing we have to remember.
In this case, I mean, if you have to try to know the guild first before you contest, because if you
Yes.
contest and you don't understand what the guild is, what the purpose is, what the goal is, where you're trying to go with this, and you can't you don't know the inner workings, you haven't tried everything or at least part of it, why are you trying to change it? What is it that you think is wrong with it if you haven't even tried what there is, what's there?
Yeah, that's where my thoughts are going to be a little different. I do understand who you're talking to, and I get that. It is one thing that you should know the organization's lore before you go contesting. That should be absolutely number one, big important thing. If you know the lore and you think you can do a better job, go ahead and do it. But I will my thing about moving up in positions and doing the guild rank and stuff, I'm actually going to say I don't feel like that should always be a requirement. And for one specific reason, and this is something the admin, yeah, it's like admin will always, or should be kind of keeping an eye on this, is that sometimes the guild requirements are shit and don't actually teach you anything about the guild or the guild lore, or they're just really shitty in the fact that they suck. Like, I could go, and I'm going to use the Dominion as an example, speaking from experience and trying to make an alt in that guild. Their guild requirements for going from GR1 and GR2 were okay. But past that, the rest of the shit was absolutely horrendous. You could not move up in guild rank in that guild because it was absolutely terrible. It was the worst guild requirements I've seen since the season. And the season are not bad now, but the stuff used to be so horrible that you couldn't even get to GR 3, and this is back when we had the bigger ranks, you couldn't even get the TR3 very easily at all. Like there were so many things that were hindering you. So I will say there are always going to be exceptions when we're making these conversations and making these points, is that sometimes you do still have the betterment of the guild in mind, even though you've not actively tried to go through the guild requirements. And that's solely because of the fact that there are sometimes going to be guilds and cities where any of those things are just absolute shit. They're just going to be. And that's part of what you need to go in and fix. That's the reason why you want to go take that position, is so that you can fix things. So I can't just black and white that. There is always going to be a lot of gray in any of these conversations.
I mean, I'm looking through just now shut up. Seriously, my cat is like,
I love it though. I keep hearing the cat in the background. I'm like, oh.
Seriously, he will not shut up because he wants to go outside, and I won't let him because he's going to escape. Anyway, I'm looking at the first step up after you've done the easy first, gaining rank stuff. So gaining the next rank is basically learn about shadows. Makes sense, Sciomancers. That's what you do. If you don't know about shadow, well, you might have some issues with, leading a guild that is all about shadow. Learn about your guild. Okay, so learn about your guild. Learn and understand what the guild is about. Makes sense. Give back to the guild. So take people out hunting, join the militia and fight for the city. Try to communicate and cooperate with other things, donate and be engaging. I mean, all of these things are essentially focused on being active and engage in guild stuff.
Right. I don't think Rihrin was talking. I think it was again two people talking very specifically about different.
No, but if you can't even do that, and you basically jump in and step on the gas and start contesting straight away, it's a bit too soon. I would prefer if you try to give it a little bit more time. That's all I'm saying.
It's like me, I disagree. If the guild is dead and I'm trying to move up in the rank and the requirements are shit and people are not that active and it's in a very bad place all on its own and no one is trying to fix anything. And if I am, I understand the lore and I've been trying to engage with the organization and I'm not getting anywhere, I will. Absolutely. I mean, I'm not doing it because I'm on this character, but I will absolutely just go head first. I don't care if I'm a newbie on a new character or not. I'm just going to go try. That's just me, though. That's how I function.
To do to actually get the Sciomancer started. So I get that point, but that's when, you don't get any response whatsoever.
Yeah.
And that's a different situation because then you have an empty guild. You don't have anyone responding. In this case, we have people responding. We have people being talking sometimes, but I can't get involved in things because I'm not getting pulled in. And I fear that if I, who know about this guild, cannot get engaged in things, what's it like for newer people?
Yeah,
That's a bit
right.
Yeah.
And I honestly as much as my point was not join a guild and then I pretty specifically said that I felt people should get to know the guild before they contested.
Yeah. Yes.
However, if you have guild leaders that are keeping literally everyone in the guild out of what's going on in the guild, they deserve to be contested.
I don't care.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah,
I don't care about
I don't care.
If they're keeping people out of guild lore and engagement, they should not be leading a guild.
Yes.
Because then they're just trying to make the story about them. And when you're leading a guild, it has to be about everybody.
Yes.
And unfortunately, that just doesn't, that just doesn't jive. If somebody is not pulling the rest of the guild in, they shouldn't be guild leader. No matter how long they've been there, no matter what they know.
Yes. No, I completely agree. It does not matter what your history is, especially in some of these organizations, there is such an entrenchment that is causing a lot of this stagnation. It's not just the lore of the organization itself. It is the leadership that's there. It is the people that are in that organization that are causing that stagnancy because they don't want to make that effort to look outside the box and take the mindset of others and get involved in the game because they want it to be their own little story that they are coordinating and they're keeping very close to the cuff. And that's not how these kind of games should be working. That's not how we get more players engaged, how we keep players engaged, how we keep players. And that's what we need to be doing. We are so small. Muds are not as popular as they used to be. I mean, they're mildly in the Iron Realm community, but we get a lot of alts. We get a lot of the same players. We get people from the different IREs hopping into ours. So we're not necessarily getting a lot of fresh new players. So if we're not actively trying to evolve our organizations, we're not actively engaging, we're bringing people in, we're doing all of these different things to try to keep it lively and feeling as alive as you can, even without considerations of time zones, we're not doing the game justice. And those players are not doing the game justice, and they should be replaced. Absolutely, hands down, do not need to be leading an organization if all they're doing is sitting on their hands. And that's just me.
I agree.
And I'm being a bitch about it. I'm being a fucking bitch, and I don't care. There are several organizations across the game that are in this spot. Most of them are in Bloodlock and Spine's Reach right now. I'm just calling it out. Just flat out. I do not give a shit. Like, Duran's in a better spot now. We're getting there. Enorian's in a better spot. They're trying to push some new things. But Spine's Reach and Bloodlock are kind of in that area where there are
Bloodlock
guilds
did
that
just
need
have
fixing.
a major win.
That's true.
Yeah.
That is true.
They-
Bloodlock is getting in a better spot too. I can say that. So I think
Bloodlock's
Spine's
getting in a
Reach,
better spot, yeah.
Spine's Reach needs a little work, and I know they are working on it. They are, but there are some of the guilds there that it's just like, guys, why are you even running it?
Spine's Reach, in general, the city is probably doing better than the guilds in a way.
I would say that because Inkne, and I like him. I like a lot of the leaders there, and I've had conversations with them. I think they're trying. It's definitely more of a guild thing, I think, than it is a city thing with that one specific organization.
Yeah.
So I let's correct myself there for me being a bitch and calling people out. It's the guilds. It is certain guilds and certain guild leaders that just need to go.
Guild leaders that have been, and here's the thing, as a guild leader who I led the Templar for a long time, I didn't even realize I was burnt out until somebody beat me in a contention.
I've had that.
And then when it was gone, it was off my shoulders, and I was able to do something that was less exhausting.
Yeah.
So, like, at the time, you always feel defensive. You're like, I'm pouring so much. You're pouring all the energy you can into the guild. You're pouring as much energy as you possibly can into the guild, but you don't realize that you're burnt out, so that energy is low. And that is okay. That doesn't make you a bad... It means that you have to step back, but you don't know... You can't tell yourself that you have to.
Yeah.
And that may be the case for some of these guild leaders. However, that is not an excuse to stay in that position.
Yes.
It wasn't an excuse when I tried to do it.
Yeah.
And it's not an excuse when they're trying to do it.
Yeah. And
They're harming the guild. So it's, as for Enorian and Spine's Reach needing the most work, I mean, Enorian has some pretty consistent goals. I would, however, like to see more expanding upon the Dwamvi. Like, we know jack all about a race that our players can be.
Yeah.
I would love more of that.
I want to go back real quick about the city leader thing. I want to talk
of course.
the city and guild leader and add one more important point. And this is one that I run into, and I was honest with something that came up recently that the only reason why I'm still playing at this point is because I'm running the city and the guild. Like, that's me.
Right.
If I didn't have that, I really don't have much else going on in the game. I would probably end up taking a break or quitting just because I don't have shit to do. But that shouldn't be your only excuse for not stepping down. If you literally are inactive, you don't want to play, just make a post. Even if people don't contest you, that's not on you. That's on the guild for being dead. And there's not anything you can do. And that is not your fault if there's not many people. And I know that may be the situation with at least one of them is they don't think they have anyone to replace them. But that's not on you. If you really are not active, just make sure you make the post and say, hey guys, I'm really not doing anything. If you want to replace me, no harm. Please do it. But no, this is why we are like this, is because I'm not around.
In it. Yeah. I will also say this. I think there are some guilds that have historically had a lot of difficulty recruiting the Centauri.
Mm-hmm.
The Ascendral, I find usually has trouble recruiting.
Yeah.
And I think at a certain point, the admin absolutely should be going to those guilds and saying, okay, it's time that we overhaul everything.
Yeah. What can we do?
Because clearly whatever we tried to do here did not work.
Yes.
No.
Like, for example, the Centauri, because I went to the Centauri, and I actually had a lot of fun being there while I was there.
Yeah.
However, it's not a whole lot to build a guild off of.
Yeah.
No.
It's like we've
It's
got
more
stuff
of a, like,
now, but yeah.
Right, like, it's, like, you guys added a bunch of cool stuff with, like, I think that the Yakuza-style tattoos are really cool. I think that there's a lot that could be done with the Centauri that is dope as fuck. However, I think that, unfortunately, admin cling too much to the base idea of something.
Yeah.
And are unwilling to go, hey, this base idea that you tried to do, fucking nobody in your game wants to play. So at a certain point, you have to accept that that the initial idea was, maybe it was strong at one point, but it's not what people want to play now.
Yeah.
And you have the Centauri, who are badass monks that you could literally have going around breaking people's kneecaps for Dendara, or like, you could do a lot of cool shit with a bunch of, like, roided up monks, but your whole thing is just about, like, self-improvement.
Well,
It's not like a thing to build a guild around.
No, and we have changed that, and I am probably going to evaluate again and change the org again now that people are pretty much gone again.
Right.
But just shift it to whatever we
the
end up doing.
The tattoos are cool. I think
Yeah.
you should definitely keep those.
Oh yeah, the tattoos are still going to be a thing. We ended up going into the void. We've got a whole thing. I've talked about it in other strings. So there's been improvements. But if we end up shifting the org in Duran more, I'm absolutely going to do a heavier stance. Yes, we're going to shift. Exactly.
Agreed.
And I will
think
say,
that's smart.
The admin right now are fantastic about listening to ideas. And even if it's extreme,
has been great.
Yeah, it's like, as long as you're willing to run with it and destroy your org in a positive way and other people want to do it, then they will let you go ahead and do it. They want to make sure it fits the lore of the game still.
And they want to make sure that you're prepared.
And make sure that we're prepared.
Because you think something's really dope doesn't mean that everybody's going to.
Exactly. So there's definitely some potential. I want to make sure to say that for anyone who's looking at their orgs and saying, I don't know what to fix, talk to the admin, spitball ideas, there's no harm in any single idea. I came up with a shit ton. I had like I want to say it's like probably 200-300 word list of different things I thought the Centauri could do, and we whittled through it and found what worked. So you can spitball whatever. It's still important to continue to evolve and try to evolve your organization, because that's the only thing that is going to keep the game feeling like it's alive. But that's the only way you're going to find new ways to be involved in the game proactively. And I think that's going to be a big point that I do want to make sure to say, and I know we're kind of bouncing all over the place here today, but you need to make sure to find ways that your organizations could be proactive in the world. I know there's a lot of inward focus, and that's good, and that helps you with inside affairs of your organization. But if you don't set outward goals enough, you don't say, okay, I know that, like in our case, Starion is the point of shadow, and we should probably try to control it. Since Spine's Reach is not helping us, we need to be more proactive, find out what we need to do, let's go do it, and go try to take control. That's a proactive thing to do. That's a shift in the organization to make it more proactive. I think what's Bloodlock's been doing with all of their different stuff recently, that's proactive. And Norian with the slaver stuff and going in and helping Mog to do, that's proactive. So we need more of that out there, that people need to be thinking of ways to make their organizations proactive, even if that is changing the lore a little bit, so that it can make options to make the game alive.
Yes, 100%. And I think, honestly,
guilds... that Spine's Reach was willing to help Duran.
Oh, well, it's more of an impatience thing with between Spine's Reach and Duran, and not trusting them. So I will say that. They were trying to think of things, but they were, people get impatient and decide, well, let's take this into our own hands instead, like usual. That's what Duran does.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. That's why I've been so happy with being able to RP with Rihrin over Tels as Teani, because that's how I've managed to get some kind of RP around this whole war thing.
Yeah.
And it's been fun. It's built some tension, and they've been friendly before, and now it's sort of like crackling a bit, which is interesting. It makes it more interesting in a way.
Yes. That's what we need between organizations. I love it between Honori and Duran. I know I get frustrated with some of the things that happen, but I actually love the tension. And there needs to be more tension in the game. That's the only way you can get some really meaningful, not the only way, but it's one of the best ways to get some meaningful role play going.
Tension is I think there's a good amount of tension between Honorian and Duran, particularly right now.
Yeah.
I do think, however, that there is sometimes sometimes people do not want to engage in that tension. Like or they want to create tension, and then they go, well, no, I'm not gonna, no.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna sit here, and fine. I'm gonna sit here in the city where nobody can irritate me, and then you guys will just have to deal with it.
Yes, and that's perfectly fine. Like, we even in Duran made sure to post, hey, if you don't want to fight, drop your militia, no problem. We're good. You don't have to.
Oh no, I don't mean wars. I mean, like,
general.
I mean, in general, like, if you're going to start inflammatory RP, be willing to engage with it. Because if you start an RP that's kind of inflammatory, and then you just go, I'm not talking about that anymore. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
At a certain point, you're not, you then have just created irritation for somebody else for no reason. And if that's who you want to be, that's fine. Like, Nipsy clearly wants to do that. But then I think I think sometimes you have people who you're like, really? You're doing this? That's weird, because, I don't know. So you have that. But I also think, I think that guilds could benefit more from figuring out how specifically their guild members should interact with members of other guilds. So, like, for example, the Templar have always benefited from a rivalry with the Carnifex. Like, and not every guild has that. A guild that they're like, that's our enemy. But for the Templar, we look at the Carnifex and we go, that's our enemy.
Yeah.
There's never been an instance where we got along with the Carnifex.
Yeah.
Even Rasani, who talks, with Carnifex, and, like, Miol, I think, is the closest thing she'd consider a friend that is a Carnifex. But I think the other thing that people... Okay, so this is kind of related and kind of isn't, but I'm going to harp on it. I really have to. I'm sorry. You have to be okay, if you're playing anybody, with the fact that some people, even if they've never met you, are going to dislike your character based off the guild and city you're in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you're from Bloodlock, and I'm a Templar, and I tell you to get out of my tavern because you're a slaver... You don't then get to go, well, so it's like the so much for the tolerant left thing. If you're a Nazi, I'm not tolerant of you.
Yeah.
If you're a slaver, I'm not tolerant of you. You know what I mean? So I think, unfortunately, there are people who are seeing this as not a way to create tension RP. They're looking at it as people cutting off RP altogether.
Yes.
Or they complain that people are so mean, and all I want to do is be a vampire that consumes people's blood and also enslaves people. Why are you being mean to me? And in the same vein, when you're in Duran, and somebody, you fuck up, a Duran's territory, or Spiner's territory or whatever, or I'm gonna say it, I'm sorry, Rihrin, you have a guy that threatens to kill children. You don't then get to go, well, why are people treating us like we'd be okay with child murder?
Yeah.
Because that's the message that's been sent.
Yeah.
So you have to be okay with the bad consequences of your actions as much as you're okay with the good consequences of your actions.
Yeah.
And I think that people need to be okay with the fact that you can't be friends with everyone.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, there are people in Spines Reach that are like, well, why are you being so mean to me, even though we've started, like, 3 race riots in your city? Like, so much for the tolerant, welcoming Enorian. Like, bro, come on.
Yes.
Inori is
Like,
not
there's a whole history of the world. Your one character does not change the history of the world as it has
Yeah.
Yeah,
happened.
It's like you may be my one exception of being a cross tether friend or something, but your organization as a whole is kind of pretty terrible and should stop calling the kettle black. I'm sorry.
That's sort of the thing is like,
It's a perfect thing for, I mean, when it comes to Teani, I mean, it makes sense. She is, she's a Psyomancer. She meddles with shadow. It's perfectly fine for anyone from Durham to be hating on her right
Yeah.
now. Because of what's happening in Dendara. It has to do with shadow. It doesn't mean that Teani will accept them being mean, because that's not something that anyone else can control but her. So she will be feeling offended that Rihrin is not, understanding of her point of view. But that's perfectly fine because that's how it is.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
it makes
fine.
sense that she's raging on Teani and saying that you're an idiot for using shadow, and Tiani's like, but it's necessary.
But it's
Why can't you
not.
see that? We might need it in the future. It's a huge thing. Don't you understand that we're practicing with this thing? You can't be good at something unless you practice, damn it. And I mean, it's perfectly fine for them to not get along
Yeah.
on this
oh, of
thing.
course. In fact, people need to be more
not
comfortable with not getting along.
Yeah, and for Tiani to not accept that Rihrin is not accepting of her anymore. We were sort of on the going towards becoming friends here, and now you're screwing it up by saying that I'm mean.
Yeah.
Hi, Slims.
It's like I do have a request though. I have a request and a concerning thing that I think people do have to keep in mind here. It's fine for players to hate each other. That makes sense. It's a common theme, and you got to accept that not everyone's going to like you. I know I have issues with that on an out of character level with people, not liking me out of character. That's an eat me issue. But I do want people to just think about one important thing. Make sure when you are hating on each other, you keep it in character.
In character, absolutely.
You're not being a dick to them as well out of character. You're not talking about them. There's got to be some smack talking. I get it. There's going to be some of that. But don't make them feel like they should not be playing the game because of what is going on. Do not do that to people, because you don't know. There's a lot of us. Let me finish real quick. Yeah. There's a lot of us that have mental issues. I don't know a better way to say it, but have mental things going on, like we're medicated or otherwise. There are things going on behind the computer, real people there, even with that aside, that you really should try to take some mild consideration into when it comes to how you're addressing them out of character. Like, don't take it out of character so much. That is what drives me up a wall. Is I am fine with us hating on each other. I can talk to you, like I can talk with Teani and we can joke around about everything that's going on. We're good because I know out of character she's cool. We're cool. We're not having issues, and we may even get heated and annoyed with each other out of character, but we're not to the point where we're going to go be really cruel to each other out of character and make we talk to each other. So just please bear that in mind. It's real people. Don't take it too hard out of character. Don't make their lives a nightmare out of character. Just, keep it in character. And if you wonder afterwards, there is no harm sending someone a quick out of character that just says, "Hey, are you okay? Are we good?" I know that was a lot to take in. Whatever. There's no harm. Some players may not like it, but me personally, if you want to check in, or if I'm checking in with you, it's just to make sure that we're checking in each other as a player base, because we are a small player base.
I will a couple of things.
Yeah,
one on the subject of talking smack. Another note on that if you talk smack and I can prove that you talk smack, don't act like you're above talking smack in other venues.
Yes.
There's nothing more infuriating to me than somebody who I saw talking mad shit in a web during a war, then going on to say that webs are like the bane of our existence.
Yes.
Like, come on, dude. Like, let's not.
Let's not
Second
do
of
that.
all, I will offer as a flip side. Again, I want to state you should not be being mean to people out of character.
Yeah.
That's a given.
Yeah.
However, I will say this as somebody who also has mental health issues, whatever, you know. If you are finding that you have to, after every interaction, check in with people, maybe it's time to take a break.
Oh, yes. That
Because
is a good point.
I'm usually a player who I like to keep in-game, out-of-character conversations to a minimum.
Yeah.
I don't join webs unless people pull me in, and I only join because I assume it means that we're fighting.
Yeah.
I don't like to engage in a lot of out-of-character conversation. Like, I'll talk to people on Discord, that's fine.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like a separation.
Yeah.
This is the game. This is where I talk to my friends.
Yes.
That's the difference for me.
That is a
And
good point.
so, like... And that's not to say that if you're really struggling reaching out to me, I'm not going to be angry about it.
Yeah.
But I will also say that, like, you're nobody's therapist.
Yeah.
So if somebody is coming to you and dumping to you their mental health struggles and that sort of thing, it is okay for you to go, hey, I'm not a therapist. It sounds like you're really struggling. Maybe it's time to take a break.
Yes.
And that is A-okay. Like,
Yes.
it does not fall on everybody else to make sure that your mental health is sound. It falls on you.
Yes.
And if you find that, like it's one thing if it's, you know, it's one thing if it's we've had an interaction and you're just feeling kind of anxious about it and you just want to reach out. But if it happens every single time, I can't do it.
Yes.
I'm not your counselor.
That is a very, very good point. And
yeah,
and I appreciate you saying that. It shouldn't be every time. If you are having it constantly and regularly, you probably need to take a break. And I could even say that to myself, like with some of the stuff that's happened, I probably should have taken a break because of how much it was stressing me out of character. But, you know, that's not anyone else's responsibility, but me in
Right.
that case. Like if I feel like I need to take a break, I go take a break. But I do wish people would, you know, calm their tits, calm the calamity in their memories when it comes to how they're treating people out of character. So that
Yes,
stuff doesn't happen as
100%.
much.
Be
Yeah.
kinder to people is
Be
always
kinder.
a good motto to live by, is to
Yeah.
be kind to one another.
Yeah.
It's sad that we as grown-ass adults have to, like, tell people that, but here we are.
We're children in
the
big
year
bodies.
2022. It is difficult because you do have, it's kind of like walking a tightrope.
Mm-hmm.
You have to find the right balance between in character and out of character, because out of character, I'll say this a million times and 1,000,001 people can disagree with me. I understand that sometimes we do things that do not break the rules and therefore we should not be punished. However, that does not mean that if you do something and it is in sociable poor taste, I won't still consider it in poor taste. Like an 8-hour raid. Not saying that that's happened in a long time, but I'm using it as an example because we did discuss this in a channel recently. An 8-hour raid is not technically against any rules.
Mm-hmm.
However, it probably is pretty draining on the real life people that you are raiding against.
Mm-hmm.
So no, it's not against any rules, and no, you should not be kicked out of the game. However, it will make me as a player go, maybe I don't want to have that cool interaction I wanted to have with that player because they decided that raiding for 8 hours was really cool and awesome to do to people. Like, you have to find a balance. It can't all be in character, and it can't all be out of character.
Yeah.
Because there is a line and a limit that you have to find. Because sure, maybe your character would raid for 8 hours, which is a week. Maybe you'll raid for a week in-game. Sure, maybe that's something you would do as a character. But as a person, at some point you have to go, well, I'm not actually evil. I have to remember that. I can choose to stop this at any point in time because I'm an autonomous human being.
Not
Like,
Well, you have to think about things like, I need to go to the bathroom
Yeah.
and I need to have some food.
Yes.
One would think.
Have to read for 7 days straight. It won't work. You will fall flat on your face, no matter how much of a hero you
Oh
think
no,
you are.
I meant in
It's not-
character. It's like a week. Yeah, but it was 8 hours.
Yeah, 8 hours. So that's 2 days. 2
2
days.
days.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, no, you need some sleep. You
You need some
cannot do
sleep.
all
You
of
need
your
food. You
stuff.
need drink.
Yeah, not without bathroom breaks.
Yeah, like you got to do something. And like I think the wars that we've had recently were a very very good example of how you can have PK all day while it's still being fun.
Yeah.
Because we would have big long breaks where people would be like, "No, I either people got tilted and we were like, "Okay, we'll stop for a bit," or people were like, "I'm fucking hungry." So we would take these big swaths of time where there's still this tension of war in the air, but you're not actually fighting yet.
Yeah.
So you had the tension where people can get into this war mindset and be really into it. But then you also have this break of we're not actively fighting. It's safe for me to go to the bathroom. It's safe for me to get food. You know, it's one of the reasons I think holy wars suck, because when an ethne had a holy war before I joined Demariel, I was up until fucking 6 a.m. because you can't take a break with a holy war. You have to keep going. There's no like this is the off time. It's not like orrery. You have to go fight, or you have to be okay with losing, and that's just kind of what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and like sure, losing is not terrible, but like nobody wants to lose. Like anybody who's like I love losing, it's like shut up. No, you don't. If you did, you would celebrate every time you lost, but you don't. Like, it's one of those things where, unfortunately, the game hasn't. A lot of these different conflict types haven't caught up. Like raiding hasn't caught up with war. Holy wars haven't caught up with like the way that the player base has handled war the past few times. And I really hope that it does, because more avenues of conflict are good.
Yeah.
But just remember that there's somebody else on the other side of that character. And just remember, for the love of God, just because my character was mean to you does not mean that I don't like you, the person.
Yes.
I need to make that abundantly clear. Because my character got pissy with somebody, and now they're like, it has become this whole out of character thing, and I'm like, dude, come on, like you're in a role playing game, like come on now,
Again,
like let's not do this.
It's like
No,
again,
no.
calm the
It's very
calamity.
clear that you hate everyone outside of the game too, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right, that's what's wild. Do you think I'd be playing the game if I hated everybody outside of character?
I mean,
Like, who does that?
There are some masochistic people in this game.
Let me tell you, my time on this good earth is too fucking short for me to spend it surrounded by people I don't like.
Yeah, I just ignore them.
Like, I don't have anybody on ignore.
No.
There are very few people in this game that I will outright refuse to engage with.
Yeah. There are a few people that I don't engage with either. And then there is a general reason why I'm not very much into the Aetolian official Discord. I have it. I'm in there, but I very rarely engage in it because it's just sometimes I feel like the attitude in there is not my style, or there are too many miscommunications for me to bother with it. So I usually just duck out.
Which is fair. It's not gonna be fair. I will sometimes talk there, but I don't really. I'll sometimes get involved if I find a question is really engaging to talk about.
Yeah.
Or I'll argue very, very vehemently for the idea that different orgs should have things that only they can craft. I think I will argue for that because, again, it's one of those things that helps you build up the identity of an organization.
I'd love
and
that.
Anything that does that is good.
Yeah. I'd love for designs to have more of a specialized value.
Meaning, yeah.
Yeah.
Like weapon types, and it would be very cool for things to actually matter. So, like, let's say you want, a show tell, which is the thing we've argued about, and I will continue to argue about it until the day I die. A show tell is a Dwamvi weapon. If you have shadow in you, you should not be able to make it. And I think that it would be cool, in fact. And admin, if you're listening, hit me up. I have ideas. That making a show tell should involve some ceremony.
Right.
It should be like a holy ritual thing. And that explains why people of shadow can't use them. I think that would be really cool. And there should be a weapon oppositely like that for shadow side, where they have a cool weapon that we can't use because there's some shadow thing they do. And I just think that it would be totally, totally cool for those kinds of org building identity things to be a real thing.
Armor is a bit more difficult, maybe because you have to. It has to be different functionality depending. But at the same time, it would be fun with clothes and crafting, and a city that gets a specific recipe because that's based on.
Because it's food that's like something you can fish from those waters specifically, or something that you hunt in the forests around there. Yeah, I think that would be really cool.
Awesome. I know that there is some oil now that Duran has access to, but it's not accessible to anyone else because it's hidden away behind entries that I can't get to. Which is kind of neat because I kind of like that kind of idea that you get some kind of, I think it's some forestal smells and stuff like that. Makes perfect sense for it to be Duran. I just wish that it was possible to go in and explore the place, because exploring shouldn't be hidden away.
Say that to the Sisson Guildhall. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I was going to say the Sisson Guildhall is impenetrable.
I'm not salty. I'm not salty at all.
For someone who has actually been able to get in there, it should not be hidden away. It should not be part of the Guildhall. They should make it part of the Guildhall and not part of Western Wilderness, because it makes sense for it to be part of the guild. Yes, but it shouldn't be.
If the Templar can't have a special place, why do you? Okay, so full disclosure, Tior killed a very cool idea I had, and I'm gonna bitch about it.
Oh boy.
So I wanted to create, on the heels of some really bad thing that happened in an org.
Finish.
Oh, go ahead, finish. I apologize.
So yeah, the Sisson should not have their area inside the Western Wilderness. It should not be locked away. Likewise, the Centauri should not have a room locked away.
They don't. You just have to fight a guy.
No, you don't even have to do that anymore. You can go in.
The Sentinels should not have a room in Eastern Ithmia that you can't even, prism into or follow into or anything. And I think it's Iasin has a temple hidden away that you can't get into parts of it. I think Dar has a whole area that you can't get into unless you're part of the Order. So there are a lot of things on both sides, but I don't think that they should count towards Explorer ranking. Because Explorer ranking should be open to everyone. It should be like hidden behind quests so that you have to figure out the quest to get there. That's perfectly fine, because then you just put in the extra work to get in there. But this promotes guild hopping, side hopping, and breaking and entering into stock rooms.
Does it? Do people give that much of a shit about Explorer rank?
I mean, yeah, they do. I have absolutely...
That's really weird to me.
I have absolutely done the burrow below and snuck into stock rooms in places where you can manage to do it just to get my Explorer ranking up. So I've done some questionable things to try to get that rank up. I'm a ranked 11 now, and it's annoying me. But now that I know there's a new area, I got more things I can go explore. So yay!
Here's the thing, Iasid, with that on the topic of the fairness and a sacred ground or whichever. some guilds can have it and some guilds can't, is what we're learning.
Yeah.
I, as a Templar, tried to create an area that would be inaccessible to anybody that was a Templar, that wasn't a Templar, and got told immediately no. That no area should be unpenetrable from any guild hall. And don't worry, we're changing it so that every area and every guild hall can be changed. And guess what? It didn't. So we've got the Sisson with their special secret little rooms where they can go and hide when, well, they don't really make a lot of trouble now, but they used to make a lot of trouble, and they'd go hide in there when they didn't want to get killed about it.
Yeah.
So we have all these areas, and it's just an unfairness thing. Either you get rid of all of them, or you let every guild have one.
Right.
Is sort of my feeling on the map.
Because I would rather see everything open and accessible. I would rather see that no one had a place where you could completely hide away.
I mean, if that's the case, then there's a lot of things we have to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I think the first thing that would have to go away is havens. If we wanted to make it so that nobody could hide away permanently, you'd have to get rid of havens.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of havens. I've never been. So.
No, absolutely, but there are a lot of people who'd be pissed about it.
Yeah, I know.
There's a ton of people who would be pissed about havens going away.
Well, why do we need to? I mean, we've got Tusk now that you can use to get people out if you really want to PvP them. Why?
Because Tusk
hide?
takes time.
True.
Tusk takes time. So let's talk about Nipsy, since he was here, and I know that he'll find this hilarious. Nipsy said some shit that Rasani wanted to kill him about. Obviously, that happens pretty regularly. Nipsy does this thing where he will be stacked on guards in his haven in a city that he knows most people who want to kill him are enemy to.
Mm-hmm.
So to get to him, you have to find a way to get past the enemying. You have to kill all the guards, and then you have to tusk him. And by that time, somebody's come to save him. So, okay. Totally understand that people should be able to hide away, because realistically, if somebody's trying to kill you, you're going to try and hide away somewhere. Like, just realistically speaking. However, if we really want this to be a nobody can hide anywhere thing, then havens would have to go away. Because then all that becomes is you are on top of guards. And I can potentially, if I have even one other person with me, kill you before those guards kill me. But when you're in your haven, Tusk takes I think it's like 3 seconds of equilibrium or something like that. It's quite a bit when you're talking PK.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, it is a lot, and you have to stay put. You can't go anywhere. So, and then you can run into different guards and all that sort of thing. So havens are a big deal, and Tusk doesn't really get around havens, from what I've seen. It's like a possibility. You may as well just rest them at that point.
Yeah.
So, like, havens would have to go.
And all the guild halls have to be opened. I mean, I don't see why it shouldn't be possible to keep them open. Just stack some guards outside from the city and should be fine.
I think the issue is that it isn't always, because you can absolutely, as I've learned, you can be dire called out of your guild hall.
Yep, you absolutely
and you
can.
So, like, it's I think that it's one thing if, like, okay, so the Templar have a gate at the front of their guild that if you know the password, you can get past. This is only ever used in times where we consider ourselves at war. I think that guild halls having that is kind of cool, especially because I'm pretty sure if they wanted to, you can attack the barricade and knock it down.
That's usually
so, like,
the
you
intent,
can knock that down and then get in, but that's usually used if you want to fight these people.
Yeah.
And it does, I think, it enemies you to the guild or something like that. I don't remember the exact mechanics of it, but you can break down a gate. Like, I think that is totally an acceptable thing for an orc to have.
That would be fun.
Something that you can break down, or something that isn't always down. Like, the Templar Guild Hall is usually one of the easiest ones to look around in, because we usually have it open because we're the ones with the arena for the city.
Yeah.
Or not the arena, the training grounds for the city. So we usually have it open for anybody to enter. I do think that when it comes to secret rooms, it's either all or nothing. And if you can have secret rooms, they just shouldn't count towards the Explorer rank.
Explorer, no, exactly.
I didn't know that people cared that much about Explorer rank. But since they do, it shouldn't count towards the Explorer rank.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, now we've gone through
A long time.
it's like we've gone off the rails and onto, things not related to org stagnancy. Though I appreciate the general, the Explorer rankings are very, very damn annoying. But we did get off of the topic of stagnancy. However, I do think we've gone through the stagnancy stuff pretty effectively, and I wanted to point out there is a possible event going on in the game, so we may want to go ahead and call it here so that people can go pay attention to what's going on and see what happens.
Why, you're not going to live stream the event?
Oh, I do some. I could, but I would absolutely probably not talk that much.
Not talk, not pay attention.
Yes, and
people would just run wild.
They would run wild. You guys, I let you two just talk, and I'll just sit here and do my things over here. That's fine.
I am being stopped by a murder of crows right now.
You can leap out of the room, just so you guys know.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Oh, you guys are being stalked by crows.
Yes, in the Mojave right now, there's a lady just sacrificed a rabbit, and now there's murders of crows. We need to go figure out what's going on.
Cool. Can you get me her number?
Yeah,
anyway,
you need some crows there. Okay. Anyway, but I do think it's we're at a good stopping point. I think this will, we're almost to the 2-hour mark actually. So it's been a great stream. Do you two have any closing items that you would like to say before we wrap things up today?
No, I think that these crows are trying to get back at you. Yeah, they're trying to get back at me for killing one of them when I was in the stream.
Oh boy.
I'm about to die.
They're coming.
Yeah.
And crows will remember your face.
They will.
Yep.
Crows are terrifying.
They really are.
I'm sorry. I think it would. My closing statement is this. Admin, if you're listening, you should, if anybody kills the crows that are following people, every crow in the game should recognize them as a crow killer.
They really should. That
because
should be like
true to life.
That would
and they won't ruin your game experience, but you walk into a room with a crow
and they
kind of give you the stink eye. Yeah.
Yes.
They know you're a crow killer and they won't tolerate it.
You're a murderer. Yeah, it's very important. You have to be a murderer of crows.
A murderer of crows. Yes.
Yeah, not a killer.
Not a killer. You're a murderer of the murders.
Murderer. Yeah.
Yeah, murderer of murders.
That's perfect.
All right.
Okay.
Well, have fun with your event, everybody.
Yes.
Yeah.
Have fun, folks. Thanks everyone
I'm gonna
for joining.
Eat soup. So.
Oh, go enjoy that. Hey guys, appreciate you all joining. Have fun with the event. We'll be back on Tuesday to speak with Legend, hopefully with less PvP this time, about the archivist. Have a good conversation. And if you have anything else you want us to discuss on stream, just hit me up. Otherwise, have a lovely day.
Yeah,
and,
tell me,
get
him to say how he pronounces his name, please.
Okay, I will do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Thanks again, everybody. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.